We should have streamers in here and sort of party hats because you've made it 10 years.
It does. It really feels, and I'm pretty proud of that, right? So just to have survived, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's your first thing initially, is that you're just trying to work out, how do I make this thing work?
Hi and welcome to the Tell Your Story Media Studios, and today we're meeting the leaders in local social media marketing. When you talk to your local audience and have a deep conversation with your customers or audience, it can take your business to a whole new level. We'll also meet a man today who has reinvented himself. He started his business and he's doing very well, and we'll get some great tips from this guest as well. So here we are. Business owner and social media marketer from DIFY Social, Steve Hubbard, is in our studios. G'day, Steve.
G'day, Pat.
Thanks for coming in.
Pleasure to be here.
What do you think of that intro? I think you've reinvented yourself, haven't you?
I think you've nailed it nicely. I like it.
So maybe we can start there. You know, somebody who was in, sport management and had a desire to do something else in your early sort of career, and then reinventing now with social media and in the early days of social media as well. So I'm sure you had some resistance, where will this go? So let's talk about that process of sort of finding a new world and setting up a business.
Yeah, well, it's interesting in actual fact, and this is something I haven't talked about for a long time, but my ABN was actually called West to East Recreation, because I was a recreation manager. And so about 15 years ago, I sort of moved over from Western Australia and then moved here and started work and life working in Brimbank City Council. Well, the whole Brimbank Council got sacked.
Yes, it was very controversial.
So they spent 8 years in the wilderness. When you're doing a lot of capital works planning, that sort of thing, it's not a great place to be if you've got no councillors that can make decisions around capital works and that sort of thing. But also it was a very toxic, difficult environment to be a part of. And so I thought, well, what could be the next step for me? And so at the time, I was actually single dad. Figured I'd go back and I'll study marketing. I'll become a sports marketer. I'll work with the AFL.
You get the kids at home, works this environment, and then you're going to university to study marketing.
Yeah, studying 3 years at Monash, and social media is becoming a thing.
Do you feel like it all connects now, that it led you down that road where you started embracing social media in the early days and then it's led to this? Oh,
very much. I think what was really helpful, particularly the 2 years I was working as a sport and recreation consultant after leaving Brimbank. So during my studies, I was working with a business called Leisure & Co. The thing there, actually, we had to put out proposals and PDF and these sorts of things, right, which I hadn't done ever before in my local government life. And so what that really helped me with was becoming really resourceful a couple of years down the track, where all of a sudden I'm trying to win business, and how do you go about putting proposals to people and that sort of stuff. So I wouldn't have thought it at the time when I was consulting.
But yes, working for somebody else and learning the whole flow of sort of business and sort of winning customers has helped me as well. So what do you say to young people who, my son, for example, I encourage him to sort of go out on his own and maybe set up a business and do that. But part of my brain says, well, maybe you need to go and work for someone else first and pick up all those skills and then jump into your own thing when the time is right.
You either go in whole as bowlers yourself and you make all the mistakes that you're going to make and you hope to learn from, right? Yes. So certainly, when I then sort of probably 2013 was, course was finished, determined I was no longer going to be a consultant in sport and rec, so started that sort of 10-year journey now in social media marketing.
We should have streamers in here and sort of party hats because you've made it 10 years.
It does. It really feels, and I'm pretty proud of that, right? So just to have survived, I think, in the first instance. And I think that's your first thing initially, is that you're just trying to work out, how do I make this thing work? So my initial steps, I actually went in with a couple of others and we were running a particular business at that time.
Right.
A couple of years down the track, it was fair to say that didn't work out for a number of different reasons.
I hear that a lot. I hear people, you partner up with people and maybe at the beginning everyone's in love, but then it sort of starts to get a bit rickety.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the reality. And I think in many ways, it's possibly not too dissimilar in personal life as in business life, right? So I think we often learn from the person we maybe could have, were the first time.
That's right. Early days, did you want to take over the world? I think you wanted to grow and expand, but now you're thinking, hang on a tick, I can just look after my local markets and I'm happy that way, and it's probably better than trying to scale up and just cause more problems and issues.
Yeah, I think it's probably the best way to put it is that I've always wanted to grow. It's probably how much growth you want to have. So I think I was a little bit sold, and I've had 3 goes at it realistically. The first time with those aforementioned partners, we looked at, and the intent was to get a whole array of other social media marketers and put them under our umbrella.
Yes.
But more recently, during COVID, as a result of some small business grants, which was good,
Yes.
I thought, okay, I just finished a year or so with an organisation called Franchise Simply, and I was going to franchise the business in 2020.
Right. I see.
COVID struck,
Right.
and it was a bit like, franchising at this point in time may not be the best idea. I think I'll just employ.
Yeah.
And so I went through a process.
So franchising is selling your brand to others who set up an office in another city or town and use your model.
Correct.
The leads come to you. Are you the hub, and then you give it to the franchisees, or there's many different ways of doing it?
There's probably different ways of doing it. Certainly the way that the intent for me to do it and the way that I finished up doing it with the graduates was to actually have them, that you want them winning their own work.
Right.
And I think that would be the case with most franchisee and license type models. However, there's always marketing money that the brand normally puts behind it. In fact, one of my longest clients is a fellow, Jonathan Lee. He has the mortgage choice down at Williamstown, and John was running his mortgage choice practice, had the wheels, so he's part of then the corporate brand, and he was sort of from Braybrook to Williamstown. He then since subsequently built the bricks and mortar business in Williamstown,
right.
and he now has a couple of other mortgage choice type operations. Now, in that instance, what we want to achieve from a social media perspective is we want to win from Jonathan to Williamstown to mortgage choice.
Yes.
So we're winning from the bottom up because everybody loves John, right? And everybody loves, if they're in Williamstown, we love being part of Williamstown, right? We don't necessarily love mortgage choice, right?
Because it's a brand. It's
a brand.
It.
We don't have the same connection, right?
Yes.
But if you apply that sort of model, and as I said, John, you're doing that in Chatswood in Sydney now, and Greensboro up in the north here.
So this is a message for our viewers and listeners right now. Setting up a business, you refer to micro business or a small to medium business. That's so powerful, I reckon, from the bottom up. People are getting sort of all sort of overwhelmed about their brand. What should I do? What's my marketing strategy? Start from the individual. Start telling that story and get everybody used to, the people and their stories. And then, as you say, the suburb, so the bottom up. And that sort of helps people when they think, what will I do next? What should I do with my marketing? And social media is good for that.
Talking about that, realistically, it's relationship first, sales second.
Yeah, okay.
You build the relationship. I've done a lot of business networking. That's certainly been a real key pillar, and probably for most small businesses, business networking, word of mouth is what's really important. Probably the most powerful of the social medias from a direct and personal means, and that marketers work this out now, is LinkedIn.
Right.
So I can connect with Pat. I can say, hi, Pat. I'm also local, do social media marketing. Notice that you're providing video and do your radio. Be great to connect and stay in touch.
Yes.
And maybe we could meet for a coffee, and maybe you could have a chat to me about what you do and how you do it, and how we might be able to do things together.
Yes.
And so clearly then that first instance is not about selling Steve or trying to work out how I can best buy from Pat. It's actually trying to work out whether there's opportunities for us to do things together in whatever way that might be.
So is that a message for our viewers again that when you're on social media, be it LinkedIn or any platform, just back off the sell, build the relationship? Or is there a time where you can just come in and say, look, this is what I do and this is what it costs?
I think you need to build relationships for most businesses.
And that's what's refreshing about you as well. You're a certified marketer. You studied at uni for 3 years. You made that change, and you understand the basics of marketing. I think there's a lot of people in the digital marketing space, a bit of smoke and mirrors, the search sort of stuff, people just pop up. It's unregulated. What marketing techniques do you use now that are fundamental and basic, and what's different about these digital platforms, if you know what I mean? Because I have the feeling that a lot of it is similar and the same rules apply, but there are a few little differences, like you can sort of target suburb now and be more local.
Yeah, I think to your point, we even discussed to start with, around being a digital marketer. It's not something I refer to myself as, only on the basis that in general, they're not marketers per se, right? Realistically, the world of online and digital marketing is just so broad.
Yes.
Right. So,
So what does it mean? It's digital marketing. It's sort of very, very broad. That's
absolutely.
Right.
And so, because Google probably owned it first, my immediate sense when I hear digital marketing is I think Google, right? So, and I love Google, don't get me wrong. But when I talk social media marketing...
But Google's search marketing, is that right?
Correct.
It's search.
Yeah, so
it's
Google,
keywords, they're searching, they have high intent.
Correct. So probably the simplest way to think of it is Google is all about having them find you, right? Whether you're actually doing keywords or whether you're doing paid Google advertising.
Yes.
And you're getting to the top of searches to sort of beat the ones that are using keywords below.
Yes.
Largely, Google is around having your customer audience find you by way of searching you in the Google.
That's right. And if they're searching, they're in the market.
Correct.
Yeah.
Whereas typically, particularly with what we do in Facebook owns Instagram. So when you're talking Facebook advertising, you're talking about both of those channels. We're finding them.
Yes.
So in other words, I was just working yesterday with a local cafe. We'll give them a shout out, Willis and Anderson. You're a local cafe in Yarraville. Realistically, what you want to target is foodies, people that like coffee, who's going to come in for brunch. And it's not that hard to capture a 3 kilometre and get them seeing it. Similarly, rolling car wash in Maidstone, right? Same sort of thing. You don't need to push that out. Certainly what Facebook can be a little bit evil around the advertising side of things, and they'll give you a saved audience that might be 2 million, right?
I see.
And it might be very broad.
Right.
And depending on, probably not for your local cafe and for your local car wash, but for other things, it could be very broad. And let's say it's a haystack of 2 million people, but the real haystack and the real trick is trying to bring that haystack into a measurable amount of people that you really want to talk to, right? Because it's all about newsfeed. Yeah. So I think particularly those people that have been in business for a long time, if they can understand that it's not dissimilar to the old newspaper. You want to get into the Facebook feed. You want to get into the LinkedIn feed. You want to get into the Instagram, Twitter feeds. They're all feed, right? And you want to get seen by your audience in those feeds. When you're paying for advertising, you're paying to get into your particular audience's feed, right?
Yes. So those sponsored ads that you see.
Correct.
And there's a bit of testing and learning, isn't there?
Correct.
Yeah.
So
once you refine that audience, you're on a winner. It's great.
The first thing to make sure is you've got a really good business,
right?
And you know who that audience is, right?
Okay.
And you know what differentiates you from others,
right? That's a challenge sometimes to know who your audience is or what makes you different too. That's something you need to sit down and really
what makes you unique.
That's why they need you in the room, really. Sometimes I think you need someone to come in here and help you work out who your audience is and why people come to you. That's the first thing.
Well, often it's not rocket science. Realistically, because of the model we use, so we're using a content marketing model to share across the social media channels,
right?
With the intent to get them back to the website. Mm-hmm. So if your website lets you down, then it's not social media's fault. Right? So your website needs to be professional. It needs to have the calls to action that you want them to do, right?
How many people, Steve, come to you with those dinky websites that don't work, they haven't got the call to action, and you think, I'm leading them to your website, but when people get there, they can't work out what to do.
And so that could be the issue, right? So, and that's not my territory, so I've got plenty of referral partners that I can talk to and suggest they talk to. And often it can be the case that I'd suggest they go and get that rectified first and then come back to me.
Can you just do a landing page? It sounds expensive to redo a website. Can you do a landing page?
You can do a landing page. And, really landing page often to me almost is AKA sales page.
Yeah.
So my sense is, and so, then if you're working with an agency or an SEO mob, then clearly they're able to capture and convert. They can look at your capture and conversion. But often people come to me because they've spent an extra zero on what I charge because they've gone through digital agencies and then they come back and say, I got that zero. I didn't get what I was expecting. So I think the first place is just to make sure that you are – look, nobody has a perfect website, but – are you happy with your website? Does it present the values and the position? And that's probably the other thing we haven't talked on. Does your website, does your collateral, does your, what you wear to meetings, that sort of stuff, marry up with what you want, the audience that you want to attract?
Who you are, that all sort of computes in the customer's mind.
Yeah, and consistency, right? So the reality is your about / why us, your services, all the details that are available on your website. You might have a blog, all that sort of thing. Is it consistent? And then are we able to, so realistically, social media sites, those 6 sites we talked about, don't think we mentioned YouTube, but there's the 6th. Is our about and our visual imagery all the same on all of those? You know, so there's consistency across. So we know the business we're dealing with here, and it attracts us, and we go, okay, we want to find a bit more about this business, you know, and how do I contact them? You know, what's the best way? So clearly, social media shouldn't be a shortcut, though. Effectively, I've seen plenty of businesses that set up their Facebook page, for instance, and that's their one thing. That's all they've got, right? So realistically, Facebook's not very generous organically nowadays. So you need to spend $1.
You need to pay.
As soon as you spend $1, it's never been more generous. And in fact, the capacity of what it can do now has never been better either. So we're typically using awareness, traffic engagement type, $5 a day type spend, right? That's the entry level, right? Just as a way of measuring, as you mentioned before. What does that do?
$5 a day, and then you can start to access your local audience with your sponsored ads.
Correct. You get a bit of a sense of, and so the difference of doing that is the difference between, you might have 200 people following your page. If you're not spending any money, you might get 100 people seeing your posts in a month. Typically it's sort of somewhere between 5 and 10% of your following might see your posts, right? If you're spending $5 a day and you're getting hundreds into thousands either engaging or traffic across to websites, that's a pretty good investment of $5 a day, right? And so so it's just understanding that by applying ads, all of a sudden you get the exponential benefit. And they work hand in hand. Doesn't mean you can stop, or you should stop doing your day-to-day posting around educating the people that are already following you and referring you. But the advertising is just the getting to those people. So, you know, there's only 2 reasons that we do any marketing communications, right? Only 2.
Only 2 reasons why we do any marketing?
Any marketing communications.
Well, to tell people why we're so great and how we change their lives with our product or service. Am I even close?
No, you're off the mark, but that's okay. I mean, that's okay. I appreciate you having a crack at it. Only 2 things. I remember a lecturer sort of saying it's a bit like cricket, right? Like bowling and batting, tennis, serving, receiving. Basically, you want to retain the people you already have. Retain the existing customers. So that's why you do those day-to-day posts, because there's people that already know you, right? You want to get them coming back. You want to get them telling their kids, their family, that sort of their friends. The other thing is to attract new people. So retain and attract, that's the only 2 reasons. And Facebook advertising, Google advertising, other means, other communications are great ways, paid communications are great ways to attract the people that at the moment have no idea who you are. The people that are engaging with it, Facebook's going, okay, well, these are interested. We'll show them that ad again, right? So maybe they watched 50 seconds of the video, right? So, okay, well, they must be interested. Let's watch it. Maybe they click through on the find out more. So really, I don't know what they say now. It used to be 7 touch points, right? I think now they say it's 24.
It depends if you're in the market too. If you're looking for something, you're like, oh, okay, I need that. There's an air conditioner ad. I need an air conditioner at my little place, and straight away I reacted to it. But it does take time.
Yeah, I've done that as well. I think a lot of small businesses will put up barriers when it comes to social media, and even with their advertising, just because they're not sure. You know, I get a lot of people who say, well, I've tried it, it didn't work. And it's a bit like, okay, what did you try doing? You know, well, I was sending, they might have sent it to the website, and it was a bit like, well, okay, that website, or you're doing it from that Facebook page. Realistically, even the pages could be not set up correctly, right? And certainly the audience is usually the main factor. One of the things early days I realised, in actual fact, because, at the end of the day, particularly in my business, and something that, early days you never want to, you would know, right? You get a client, you want to keep that client forever. Right? I used to take it very hard when you'd lose a client. The reality is small businesses do come and go, and clients come and go, right? But what would happen is I'd be doing their social media posts, let's say every second day or every day, and all of a sudden they'd say, Steve, for whatever reason, we're now stopping, and we'd stop, right? And so effectively what would then happen, there'd be no posts on that site. So what do you think then happens?
Well, the tap's turned off.
Most people think they've gone out of business.
Yeah, right.
So that's the reality in this current age. So if you go from having a habit of posting, whatever that habit looks like, so if you be very wary if you've got social media pages and the last time you posted was somewhere in between in COVID, right? Because that means you're probably using them like websites, and people don't expect social media to be used like websites.
When I don't see somebody post for a while or something, I think to myself, where is that person? I hope everything's okay. They're not there.
Oh, yeah, if they're individually, that's right. It could be the same thing. Yes. Yeah. But particularly, same thing from business. We make that judgment that are they, it depends how much we care about them. Well, if we don't care that much about the business, then we just move to the next bloke that we can see.
Yes, or that's true. That's true. Just back to you and the way you set up your life and your business. You have I noticed somewhere a perfect week, or the way you sort of structure your week, which you've worked out is something which works for you?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm not quite sure where I first saw it, right, or who suggested it to me. But, it's really sort of laying out your calendar every week as to what does that look like for you. So I think particularly when you're running your own business, it can be very easy to get absorbed 24/7 into running a business, and that's not very healthy for your family and for your sport and recreation side of things. So for me, Mondays is all about scheduling for Tuesday to Monday the week ahead for all of my clients, right? So Mondays has always been my get everything done, get everybody scheduled.
Yeah, right.
I have an offsider and I have a virtual assistant that also help me with that nowadays. But effectively make sure that all of the posts are scheduled on Monday.
Okay.
And we should have...
I was going to ask you that because it's quite sort of labour intensive. You're doing all these posts, it's all content for each client. So Monday's your day where you sort of work it all out and schedule it for the week?
Yep, I'm on the tools Monday. So people can't really contact me on Monday. But if I'm on the tools Monday, then it gives me Tuesdays and Thursdays to work with new clients, new projects coming on board. Mm-hmm. It gives me Wednesdays.
Today's a Thursday.
Today's Thursday, isn't it? Yeah, we sacrifice that because we're in the summer.
This is
holidays.
New client while you're talking to.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so realistically, Tuesday, Thursdays for new clients. And I should say, this is sort of, I'm probably 7:30 to 6. Is pretty much my day.
Yeah, okay. Big day.
On a good day. It's school holidays at the moment, so maybe slightly relaxed.
Yeah.
But that's my working days. And as I said, by scheduling Mondays, it enables me to do new projects. Wednesdays is typically an engagement and where we actually go on DIFY Social for our clients or it's actually going and having meetings. And I'll often do that on Fridays as well, more of a meeting day. It will become a third day if needs be for projects. Yeah. But I've found that Friday's not the best day to try and be winning new business and that sort of thing. No. It's a better day just to sort of enjoy. Too. And so largely I keep that perfect week on the basis that on Mondays I can go play beach volleyball. Thursday nights I play beach volleyball. I've mentioned weekends. I've got the best hobby job. I work at the MCG in Caulfield, so I've always had my security license, which again helped me when I was studying.
MCG in East Melbourne and Caulfield Racecourse.
Caulfield Racecourse.
Okay.
So they're my two sort of venues that I do event security.
Oh, right.
So sometimes people will say, your face is a bit familiar.
I've thrown you out of the races.
And so, typically, I've got the best spot in them. In fact, the reason I do it, I get the best spot. I'm in the mounting yard. I couldn't get in the mounting yard at Caulfield. Otherwise, you have to own a horse, right? So that's one of the things. And I'm on the arena at the MCG in front of the members. So that's the reason why at times people perhaps say a little bit familiar. So anyway, allows me a lot of time. And the good thing about that is that's just headspace time, right? So I don't have to be social media marketer. I'm doing two things at that time. I'm watching a sport, footy, cricket, racing. Yeah. And as you said, and 5% of that time I'm maybe making sure that the troublemakers are or keeping people at bay. But 95% is just customer service. Realistically, it's smiling and how are you, that sort of thing. Yeah. And then my wife, has her own recreations. We've got the 7-year-old, and so clearly got plenty of time. He's a budding sportsman himself, so you spend a bit of time with him. So we don't want to sacrifice that. She does tango. Her version of beach volleyball is tango. So she goes out and does that. And so I think, if you can set up. Certainly for me, I've found that you keep your business time, and you work as hard and focused as you can. Yeah. But you really, and this is something you have to really work at. And I'm certainly not perfect, right? Certainly to try and be present in those other times. So if it's present with family, then you're really present. You're not trying to keep the work, you're putting the work behind you, right? So, which I think is often a lot easier if you're working for others. Something I really dislike is that sense of fake it till you make it. I think people see through that pretty quickly. And so I certainly know that what I've always tried to be, someone framed it as very tradesman-like as a marketer, right? So in terms of trying to impart the knowledge that I have in a way that others can more easily understand.
Yes.
Because often I think if we do try and fake it, it's... as you said, you lose that authenticity and people can People can smell it.
Yes. Be yourself. That's right. People like that. They connect with another human. And that's what social media is good at too, sort of being yourself and telling your individual story. A lot of good information there, Steve. I love it. Great chat. Leaders in local marketing with business owner and social media marketer at DIFY Social, Steve Hubbard. We've had a good session, mate. I appreciate this. So Steve Hubbard, you can find, I can give you a website, yeah? So it's difysocial.com.au. Head to the website and you'll be able to find out more about Steve. Thanks for coming to chat to us here at Tell Your Story Media, Steve. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, mate.
Brilliant. Absolutely. Thank you, Pat.